Opioid overdoses are on the rise nationally, and can drug manufacturers be held liable?
Steve Lowry is an attorney with Harris Lowry Manton who has handled cases just like this. He joins us now. Good morning.
Hey, how are you?
How are you? I'm good. I'm good.
So it really is a problem nationally.
Yeah,
I think we've talked before about this, not on the scale here or some other places, but really it's a national issue.
Well, it's a bad issue no matter where you go, and Georgia is no exception. But as far as the numbers in overdoses and increasing use, some of the northeastern states or the northern states like Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, some of them are having a worse problem with it.
Do you think with what you're seeing in your work, are we on our way to that level?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of these things that's happening everywhere. I mean, part of the problem with this is that this is such a highly addictive drug, and it's given out for a number of things, including these chronic pain syndromes, which it was never really intended to be used for. It was intended for short-term use. But once you start using it over time, it's so highly addictive. There are very few people who don't get a strong addiction towards these opioids. So I think Georgia could be on its way. Now they've tried to, have some legislation aimed towards these, what they call pill mills, the doctors who are giving out too many. But that's really just sort of part of the problem. It really goes back to the manufacturer and the way they marketed it and the way they're still marketing it.
Right. And that's what we wanted to ask about is, when does it become an issue that they are liable?
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to how this all started back in the 1990s with OxyContin and Vicodin. Yeah. But essentially, the manufacturers were assuring doctors that this was not highly addictive, that it could be used for long-term use, and those were just patently false. And so they have built this up, and so from the early 1990s, you've gone from several million prescriptions a year to hundreds of millions of prescriptions per year, and so it's just gotten worse and worse. And the problem with once you start allowing or stop allowing doctors to prescribe it or prescribe as much is if you're still addicted, then you go wherever you can to find it, and that's why actually heroin use has gone up, because the opioids and heroin are essentially the same thing. One is a prescription form and one is not, but the way they work on you is essentially the same. Yeah,
it just kind of mimics the opioid. That maybe your prescription has run out and you can't get anymore, so you seek the similar effect on it.
That's exactly right. So, that's exactly right.
Has it been discovered that the manufacturers might have been kind of falsely putting that information?
I mean, it's reported in places, even with the National Institute of Drug Abuse, which is a government agency, where they said that part of the problem, a big part of the problem, was the aggressive marketing strategy of the companies. And I think that's going to come out in this litigation, which is national now. It's probably the largest litigation in the country right now that's pending up in Cleveland, Ohio. I mean, that is the evidence that's coming out, and I think that the evidence is pretty overwhelming that they were pushing this so that it would be basically, so that they could get as many people using it for as long as possible. And when you're talking about a highly addictive drug, which can cause serious consequences, including death, it's a recipe for an epidemic, which we have now.
What do you think it's going to take to turn this trend around?
I mean, I think a big part of it is having these companies be held liable, having legislation, having them come in front of Congress, and it's just going to take a change in the way that we deal with pharmaceutical companies, and especially their marketing part of it. I mean, obviously they do some great things when they come up with new drugs that can solve, illnesses that we've had for years, but the way they market it, and it's so profit-driven, that has got to change. And hopefully, this is the tipping point that'll push us over the edge, because it's gotten to a point where, I mean, we have over 100 people dying every day from prescription overdoses.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not a quick fix, because these cases drag on for years and years and years, don't they?
That's right. That's right, exactly. Well, and obviously, you have a number of companies that are involved in it now, and it started out with OxyContin and Vicodin, but it grew into fentanyl and then into all kinds of other drugs, and you've probably got over 20 companies that market some sort of opioid, and a lot of those companies aggressively market it, and it's a high profit driver for them. So it's one of those things that they push very hard, and it's going to take a change at the top level in the manufacturing.
It's a scary subject. Thanks for bringing it into focus for us.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Always
Thank
great
you.
to see you, Steve. Thank you.
Nice seeing you.
Savannah Community Theater, next.